private property debris removal program. And tonight we have our Southern Disaster Recovery President, Chip Patterson, and the North Carolina Emergency Management Assistant Director, Joe Stanton, here tonight to speak to that. Huh? So, yeah, come on up. Yeah, sorry. So is Joe here also?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Welcome, Chip.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for welcoming me. I think the last time I spoke before y'all was during Tropical Storm Fred. It was right after Fred came through, horrific damage in Haywood County, and came to have some sort of a similar discussion and presentation at that time about debris removal as a part of your recovery from that storm. And at the time, we all thought that's probably as bad as it can get. And none of us could have anticipated what a few 3 years later, much larger, stronger storm, widespread damage. And but I'm here to talk specifically about the Haywood County debris removal, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the waterway, private property debris removal. This is, it's important to me, it's close to my heart, it's my job, all wrapped up in the same thing. I don't know if y'all remember, but I told you last time that I was born just a few blocks from here in the old Waynesville Hospital, and that we immigrated when I was about 3 over to Transylvania County, chasing a job like most folks, and grew up there. The mountains is in my blood, who I am, and I'd tell you who my in-laws and outlaws are, but I'll hold that for another day. But I've been with Southern Disaster Recovery for 8 years, first as a consultant to the company, and then as the Vice President of Operations, which was my job when I spoke to you during Tropical Storm Dean. I'm Fred, I'm sorry. And then I was promoted, although I wondered about the wisdom of it, back in August to President of the company. That's more about contracts and paper than it is about operations, which is my heart, which is what I love to do. I get to talk about operations tonight. And we've been about the work of right-of-way debris removal in Haywood County. We've removed somewhere around 34,000 cubic yards of debris from Helene on the right-of-way. And we're in the process of working with the community of closing that right-of-way out and being able to serve everybody that needs to be served on the storm debris removal. Private property debris removal and waterway debris removal are components of the overall, I guess is our North Star, the FEMA debris removal program. Those are the 3 of the 4 components: right-of-way debris removal, waterway debris removal, and private property debris removal. And just like as we're phased in this period of time right now, most communities have that phased as part of their recovery. The waterway debris removal is an emergency work, just like the right-of-way, and has some constraints, just what the community experienced during the tropical storm, some constraints and some benefits to be able to protect infrastructure, primarily bridges, both public and private, other infrastructure, and from a future flood event or a short-term, near-term flood event. And so there is quite a bit of assessment that's accomplished for the waterway debris removal, a lot of scrutiny, and in that even though it's emergency work, there is a lot of folks involved in being able to scrutinize whether it's the right thing to do, whether it's eligible, and then what those, I call them the right and left limits in the stream, and then how far upstream is necessary to be able to protect that infrastructure. And in that regard, both FEMA and the state have been wonderful partners in being able to help define those limits, and specifically define those limits, and being clear about it. You know, honestly, clarity is probably one of the more beautiful things in disaster recovery on a particular subject. And both the state and FEMA have been very clear on what those limits are. Your monitoring firm, you have a third-party monitoring firm, has been about the work of doing drone overflights on the waterway and have captured imagery, the GPS points, in order for that evaluation by the state and FEMA to occur, so that proper eligibility can be identified and the permitting can be accomplished. And so within Haywood County, there were 4 drainages or 4 waterways that were identified. And honestly, I couldn't tell you if that was something that was done in conjunction between the county and the state on those waterways. During Fred, that was pretty cut and dried. The East Fork of the Pigeon River and a little bit of the West Fork. In this case, with Helene, is the Pigeon River, Hominy Creek down, going, back towards Asheville, really, and then the Jonathan Creek and the West Fork of the Pigeon River. And it's the first package was done on the Pigeon River, and that package came back with roughly 22 sites that identified eligible for debris removal and permitting came back for those 22 sites. So in short, in relation to what's next for, I'm presenting obviously on behalf of the contractor, SDR, and I will speak on what would be next on a path forward associated with SDR, would be a number of activities that would immediately follow the county's notice to proceed. One is that very next day identifying and going to get rights of entry along the Pigeon River in those areas that were identified as eligible, and the permitting's back for those stretches. Each of those stretches has a GIS overlay already identified, the property owners already identified, and I think it is worth pointing out that it's something that we have been practiced at in Haywood County. We partnered with the county during following Fred and went about the effort of getting the rights of entry. Frankly, I think there were some who didn't believe we were going to get as many as we did. We ended up all along the East Fork of the Pigeon River getting all but one. And one property owner didn't want the contractor or government, depending on how the property owner viewed them, to be owner property. So we had a good track record in being able to get the rights of entry. Simultaneous to getting those rights of entry would be mobilizing crews to be able to do that work. And the work, the waterway work is, I look at it as sort of two-phased, is a useful way to look at it, in that the tooling, the equipment, and crews for one phase, the debris clearance out of the waterway, is different from second phase of it, which is the hauling, which is similar to the right-of-way work that you guys have observed going on in Haywood County, where it's loading the debris, taking it to a temporary debris storage site, processing or reducing that debris, and then hauling to final disposal or beneficial reuse. So that second phase of it is similar to, and just like the right-of-way debris removal. And then the clearing for the waterway is different in the sense that it's going to vary by stretch of water, by depth, speed of the water, width of the stream, on what equipment and tools will be needed to be able to do that work. So I think it was important for me and that first phase is the one for us that we would be tooling up first, to be able to go and start the debris clearance mobilizing for that right away in order to be able to be in the water within the week. And so that's on that first stretch of waterway, the Pigeon River. The other three have been flown, I understand, meaning that the drone flights have occurred, the data's been gathered, the packages need to be organized and sent to the FEMA and state for approval, which has been pretty quick, a pretty good turnaround, probably 10 days, 14 days, something like that to get them back around. And then we'll start that cycle on those other waterways of getting rights of entry, having the right equipment there to be able to clear the waterway, and then adding on the load and haul portions of that to be able to get the debris out of the staging areas. Let me stop right there and see if I can answer any questions, anything that I brought up, or
You had mentioned, is Richland Creek in that also? I mean, is it in the watershed that needs to be debris removed?
it was not on this short list of.
Okay, I was just curious.
I knew at one time Campbell Creek had been mentioned,
Okay.
but
Well, Richland Creek basically comes through Waynesville and then down to Lake Junaluska, and I was just wondering if you hadn't mentioned that, and I was just curious about it. And that might not be in this contract, I guess, maybe.
well, it's something that is both, I think, is a combined of what's the perception of the hazard, which coming down through a built-out area is probably a high hazard, I would suspect, and then the debris load or impact. And I think that would be something that'd be quickly assessed. And
Okay. And then, now, when you're talking about the debris removal that we're going to start with, I understand that it doesn't get everything as far as the debris goes. It has to be, what was it you described, Bryant?
We've used, excuse me, we've used kind of the term of like imminent threat to public infrastructure or things like that downstream. That's really what this phase of emergency stream debris removal is. More encompassing, clear up more stretches is followed up by EWP. You'll remember we ran that through Soil and Water with McGill as our project manager. But this is really them just getting the things that are deemed emergency.
Probably the bigger stuff, you think?
I think it's more related to downstream and the bridges, private or public. So Chip can probably answer that.
if I might, yes, sir, is that generally a planning standard is 1,000 feet upstream of the infrastructure to be protected. And working with the state and FEMA identified that if there is debris that's, right there, right beyond that 1,000 feet, then it could extend to that beyond 1,000 feet. Let me also hasten to add that it is all the waste streams that's in our contract. So it's woody vegetated material, construction and demolition material, vessels, appliances. So it's the same things that we experienced during Fred in the waterway.
Okay. But it's just that, I guess you're not cleaning it as much as we will during EWP, correct, Brian? Is that? I just want to get that word out there because
You're correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
it
just to
counterproductive.
manage expectations, my understanding there are no funds currently with USDA for Hurricane Helene EWP. So
Okay.
our expectation is that that gets funded at the federal level, but right now I'm not aware of any funds for EWP.
Okay. And EWP means?
Emergency Watershed Protection.
Okay. Yeah. Just for everybody out there.
It sounds like it's backwards.
Yeah.
The EWP part for the emergency should be this phase.
That's during Fred, I heard someone say it should be eventual watershed protection. It's,
Chip, I have a couple of questions. I appreciate you coming. Kevin, or Chairman, and I was fortunate enough to meet with some of your folks last week, and I appreciate their time during that. But the 22 sites that have been identified, that is the entire Pigeon River, is that what I'm understanding? I know there's only been 22 now, and there's more to come, but is that the entire Pigeon River? I thought it was maybe from the Crusoe area down to the Canton-Clyde area.
It is protecting infrastructure from essentially there is one site on the west fork of the Pigeon River, and then goes into Canton and then down Clyde. There's actually one site on it down towards Hominy, Panther Creek, back. It's down by I-40.
Panther Creek, yeah. Right, that's probably Johnson Creek, maybe.
So it's a long ways down through that, but it's aligned with bridge crossings along the way.
And then these 22 sites, I know during Fred, we had some back and forth whether or not we could take out vehicles or appliances and stuff like that. What you're telling us today is that has been approved to get everything that's an emergency threat or an imminent threat.
It is.
We can get that stuff out of the way.
Yes.
I guess another question I have is, I know that during our discussions last week, just a big concern of mine is if we choose you guys to do this work for us, is getting as many of our local contractors that we can to help do the work. That's a big, number one priority for myself. I mean, getting it done right, and then having our local contractors. And then what I understand is a couple of weeks ago, Henderson County approved you guys, and you held a contractors meeting. I don't know what you term it as, but I guess
workshop or
whatever,
yeah.
with the local contractors that were interested, so y'all could meet them and build a relationship. And can you speak to that, if you don't
yes.
mind? I mean, they talked to us last week, but I want the public to hear it as well.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That it's contractors workshop, which is the objective is exactly, Commissioner Rogers, what you were heading towards is engaging as many local contractors as we can, and for the work, this type of work, both the clearance out of the waterway and the debris removal, and doing it in a workshop fashion where there's a lot of information exchanged, briefing about the work itself. Although there's a lot of contractors in Haywood County, some of them in the room that have done this work with us. Some of them have done this work with on the EWP contracts, and that they're certainly well versed in being able to do the waterway work that's effective, environmentally sensitive, and getting the job done. But a workshop is something that seems to work well to get the word out. It is something that we work to manage expectations in the sense of the equipment capabilities, but also then that particularly as this work rolls out, is probably going to be somewhere in the order of 20 to 25 pieces of equipment with crews around that equipment to be able to do the debris clearance out of the waterway. And then the hauling is somewhere around 10 or so haul trucks, in addition to what we're finishing up on the right-of-way to haul into debris management sites. So it's just that workshop's the time to be able to talk about those things.
And I guess part of that too is the funding piece of it. I know the board here a couple of weeks ago voted to the approval to basically get more money for you guys. And I know that was an issue when we was looking at you guys comparing with the Army Corps. Army Corps is paying the subs quite a bit more, and I understand now. I know I'm probably putting you on the spot in front of everybody. Don't want to ask you a dollar amount, but that has been changed. So I know that during the roadside cleanup, there was an issue there as far as getting the quality of subs that was needed. So I know that's been a big concern with all of us and getting some piles picked up. So I just wanted to clear that up as well.
So to clarify what you're saying is you don't have a bid process with the local subs or the subs that you use, you have a set rate, correct?
That's correct,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the rate that's been increased?
And actually, that's, it is worth speaking to that the state of North Carolina and FEMA worked to identify, essentially help North Carolina be very competitive with surrounding states' recovery. Eastern Tennessee, Southwestern Virginia, and to a certain extent other federal agencies, but certainly helped they took strong action to be able to do that, and then that allows us to be able to pass the larger cubic yard rate on to subcontractors.
And then I think you might have touched on this, if you were, I guess, awarded the opportunity to complete the work, how long does it take to mobilize these 20 to 25 pieces of equipment and folks actually doing the work? Did you say 10 days?
It would take about a week to 10 days to be able to mobilize.
To get started.
While we're doing that, we're also getting those rights of entry in that it's not a chicken and egg thing. Both have to exist to be able to go do the work. So we'll be starting on that simultaneously, which the ROEs will be, the day after we get that notice from the county. Now that is for the work that we're currently, or actually, rather, let me say, the work that Haywood County currently has, that package with those 22 sites that have that eligibility determination and permits is what we could get started on. And then it would be necessary to add on those other 3, potentially 4 drainages as we move through the project.
Saying that, Chip, this contractors meeting or the workshop that you're talking about, is that something that you feel like could happen? If we give you the green light in the morning, do you feel like it could be this week sometime?
We could do it within the week. We'd want to do it as quickly as possible. Give folks time enough to schedule, but then do it as quickly as possible in order to line up the resources that would be needed for that first batch.
You're currently doing some work in other counties right now, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's right. Yep, we have done.
So I assume you're going to need some contractors to help here in Haywood County, so.
There.
You were talking about the 22 sites that have been approved. Once they get started on those things, and I've noticed a lot of the debris that's piled up against the bridges and some on the edge of the banks and stuff. And when they start getting the ones out that are dangerous down the creek, if there's any more comes up, will y'all be able to do those like what you break loose if it gets down, further down the river and creates some more spots or something?
Well, it is something that the FEMA and the state have given us latitude that as there's additional sites that would affect infrastructure, we document those sites and then communicate to the Joint Field Office that information, and then it goes through a review process pretty quick, and then could be added on. And now I'm trusting that we're not going to do the work to where the debris is breaking free and going downstream and adding to somebody else's woes. That we're collecting that debris that's there at the bridge or on the banks upstream of that infrastructure. I'm sorry, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wondered about, anytime you're in water, you can't catch everything, but just wondering about if it created a bad situation somewhere else or something, if we'd still be able to get it out all right.
If we create a problem, then we have to fix the problem. And it is, usually it's, those things are, we follow the MPDS requirements, but we're going to have ingress and egress sites, so we're going to come in and out of people's property and up and down into on the bank that we have to restore. So we sort of created a problem to be able to get the work done, but then we have to fix that problem as well.
The reason I was asking that, there's several places where you see these big tree roots, big as 3 or 4 vehicles right on the edge of the bank, and if they go in the water, they're going to be a problem sooner or later.
Yes, sir. There is, and I didn't touch on it. Honestly, I didn't come too prepared to talk about PPDR, private property debris removal. But some of that might be addressed under a PPDR program if the county chooses to move forward with that.
And Chip, that PPDR, that's something that the private citizens have to apply for, is that right, Brian?
Say what that acronym stands for, too.
Private property debris removal.
Yeah, okay. That way everybody knows. Yeah. We do. but they-
Again, back to expectations, it's not simply whoever we select will go in and clean everyone's yard. It also has to meet requirements that get approved by FEMA. Again, that has to be some sort of imminent danger to public health or safety, kind of generally.
So catch me up, who would you use today if you were going to work? If you weren't using local, do you have contracts with other providers?
We do,
Okay.
yes.
So I think everybody on the board will agree that our local providers on the EWP portion of the stream debris removal in Crusoe, right, have really done an excellent job. And that was a bid process, and our folks came in considerably lower than some other contractors. And, you know, I asked the question, are we confident that, you know, the person that we're awarding the bid to can do the job? And they've done an outstanding job and saved a lot of money, I think. So it's important for a lot of reasons, but I think it's important for me, just because I'm from here and I see the good work that they've done, that we use our local folks as much as we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. You agree?
Perfect.
Yeah.
I agree, 100%.
Well, most of them know the people that they're
Yeah.
cleaning the river out
And
for,
they've got
so.
they've proven themselves recently, so we've got a proven track record. We're not taking much of a gamble. We've seen them work and really do a good job. They really, I am of the belief that when they cleaned out in Crusoe, right before they finished a lot of those project areas, right before Hurricane Helene hit, and had they not, I am afraid that as bad as the outcome was, it would have been worse. And so
Yeah.
they really, in my opinion, doubled down and worked real hard to protect the community. So it would be nice to see them get the opportunity to work again.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and along those lines, when we did a helicopter ride on that, and you could tell the area of Crusoe, when we went to that area, there's very little debris because it had been removed that occurred up there, and it just speaks to the job that was well done up there. So, but in other areas, you know, we're going to work on those.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the EWP part of that you're talking
Yeah.
about becomes emergency.
Yeah.
This phase here, if we hadn't have cleaned that up, as you said, it'd have been worse, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything, Tom? Pretty well everybody's asked your question.
No, I've been listening. So this phase one is going to be to protect imminent danger to current infrastructure, like roads and bridges and things of that nature.
Yes,
And the EWP program will be later.
yes.
I'm picking up what you're laying down, and I appreciate your presentation and the work that you've done with our private contractors and the people in the county that have contributed greatly. So I'm on the uptake. I'm listening.
Okay, yeah, that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you have another segment to do?
No, sir.
Oh, okay,
If Joe's got anything.
okay.
All right.
Does anybody have anything else for you? Okay. Well,
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming,
yeah,
Chip.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
See if Joe's got anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Joe.
Hey, good evening.
Just when you get started, I just want to say we appreciate all the work that you've helped us do up here. County manager speaks well of you and the work that you and the state have been able to contribute to.
I can honestly
our
say it's been
community.
a good partnership. We've all worked together, I think, for the citizens of Haywood County and the citizens of North Carolina throughout this. And, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, I was real upset about TS Fred happening here. But, you know, listening to y'all, y'all know the definitions, y'all know the way the program's laid out. Y'all have been educated, and y'all are ahead of a lot of areas that are going through this right now. And y'all seem to got a real good head on your shoulders in doing this. But tonight, I just wanted to take a minute of time to talk about, for those that don't know me, I'm Joe Stanton. I'm the Assistant Director of North Carolina Emergency Management. I oversee recovery. And I'm here to talk a little bit about debris operations as we move forward, options and other things with debris operations. And I'm also here to answer any other questions you may have of the recovery efforts that are going on with TS Helen. And also, to be honest, with Fred, we've still got some projects going on with Fred, and we've handled the unmet needs. We under Fred, we also worked with EWP, and we did the disposal of the debris. As EWP picked up the debris, we did the disposal under state dollars so that we could do more debris with that program. I also, if it's okay with you, I have with me Federal Coordinating Officer tonight, Benjamin Abbott. Benjamin Abbott is a part of the Federal Coordinating Officer cadre. He, in many areas in Texas, Louisiana, and other states, he oversees some of the larger disasters. And those, he's been assigned to us in North Carolina, and we're actually very fortunate to have him. He's a public assistance, which deals with the infrastructure, an expert in public assistance. And he has agreed to come to North Carolina, and we spent the afternoon here this afternoon looking at some of the operations, talking about private roads and bridges, talking about other projects that are going. And I just want to introduce him and see if it's okay if he would say a few words to y'all.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Commissioners, for having me. As Joe mentioned, typically I do work in what we call FEMA Region 6. This is FEMA Region 6. Region 4, I have been working hurricanes in Texas and Louisiana for many years. But one thing I want to assure you tonight, Joe mentioned about the partnerships. I arrived here on January the 20th, and the FCO, Brett Howard, arrived a couple of weeks before I did. Brett and I go back many years. He and I both retired from the state of Alabama. We were in Joe's positions for many years there. We both served as local officials at the municipal level and at the county level, and also at the state level. So we have an idea of what you're going through. We have been in those positions and have worked with many of our locals in Alabama over the years. So we know how difficult it is. We also know how difficult the FEMA process is. And I promise you, he and I will be here for the long term. And we are working through all of these issues and things that arise, especially with debris. It's very challenging. But with the partnerships with the state, the partnerships with the locals, we have pushed our team to make sure, find a way to get to yes, and we need to do that expeditiously and not take forever to get to that, because it is critical that we get, especially this debris and things, out of the way now and move forward. I know it's been a long time, but thank you for allowing me to come, Joe, but I just want to make sure that you know what my main point is. We're here. We're going to be here for a long time. Know there's a lot of work that's been done, but know there's a lot of work left to do. So anything you need from us, please continue to work with Joe. Joe, we speak every day to Joe and Don and everyone in the state. So just thank you for being here.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Has Congress funded this? Have they funded the the recovery and everything?
Yes, this disaster, we're funded out of the DRF, the Disaster Relief Fund, which was appropriated. I know there were some issues with it early on, but
Right.
it has been refunded.
Okay.
And so, yeah, there's,
So you have money to work with
We do,
now?
yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Will you tell us your name once more?
yes, I'm sorry. Benjamin Abbott, Abbott. I go by Benji, Benjie. That's what I'm known as, but Benjamin Abbott, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bryant, do they owe us any money right now? You got your checkbook with you?
Of course they owe you money. Okay.
What I will say, Joe, is I was talking to Joe before we come in the meeting and talked to him earlier today, and Joe's been with us since Tropical Storm Fred happened. And he's not kidding when he says you'll be here for the long haul. I think Joe said he'd been home 3 times since October.
Yeah, it's been a tough time. You know, we're actually located, the joint field offices in Hickory. My staff and myself and FEMA, you know, we're here for the long term. And we'll, you know, like I said, I think I've spent, I don't know how many nights I've spent in Lake Junaluska for the last 4 years. And even before that, I also worked at 2003, 2004, Isabel, Ivan and Francis up here. So I've had some experience up in Haywood County. And actually, back then, I actually ran the EWP program for the state. So I'm familiar with most of the debris operations that state carries on. I wanted to take some opportunity tonight to talk about a few things, policy, timelines of debris, what you can expect from us in the state as far as some reimbursement, because I know everybody's, is concerned about reimbursement in timely manner of. So let me first begin with policy. As of February the 28th, due to the 100% federal cost share coming to an end, the state of North Carolina felt the need to evaluate any additional tasking that the United States Army Corps of Engineers would do. Because to be honest, it has taken a long time, and we're not as far along as we wanted to be. And so we wanted to find a faster way to get the debris operations done. And so we felt like we needed to also look at the cost too, because it's very expensive and using the Corps of Engineers. It's kind of goes without saying that we haven't been able to get everything like we wanted to by now, because realistically, if you don't get the vegetated debris or the other debris picked up, recovery doesn't begin. The sooner you get the right-of-way debris removed, as soon as you get your waterway debris removed, and then in this one we've been able to get private property debris removal cleared, as soon as we can get that done, the better off our citizens are, the faster recovery happens. And spring is coming, with that. And there's nothing like spring in Western North Carolina to me. It's the greenest of greens. And it's a beautiful time. But to me, it's better than fall. It's the prettiest time of the year to me. And I just look forward, again, to having spring. I look forward to, I can see a big difference on the right-of-way debris. And I want to see a big difference in Haywood County on the waterway debris. If it is your intention to remove debris as fast as possible, then I think you've heard a lot of reasons. You have 22 sites or 23 sites that can get started immediately. If you utilize the Corps, our policy right now is that we must take a look at that. And the Corps will have to come out and do an assessment, and they will have to cost everything, get us an analysis, and get the permits before we can move forward. Normally, it's going to take 30 to 60 days at least. Then we can move forward. If you're worried about the issue of funding, yes, and it is important. What we are doing right now is we're structuring projects to get more rapid reimbursement. A project worksheet right now, the way we have set this up, will be we will write the projects. We know that we're about 20 to 25%. We'll add a certain percentage of the rest. We'll write a big project. And then we can start reimbursing. That project will be obligated, and then we can go ahead and start reimbursing in hopefully expedited manner. In fact, this week we're having a new program, a pilot program up here called advance payments. And so we're one of the first in the nations that will be doing that. So our goal is to get funds in a very timely manner back to y'all. Also, we had a conversation about private property debris removal. We have to do the right of entries, all of that stuff for private property debris removal. But if you have a private contractor already available, they know the areas. They know where a lot of this river ring flooding occurs. I can tell you that if you have debris piles in the streams, there's an excellent chance you're also going to have the debris piles on the private properties in those areas. So they know those. They've worked with those communities. A lot of the right of entries are going to be the same right of entries. So if you decide to move forward on that, I think that you'll find that, it may be advantageous. It's up to the county. We're standing, as with the state, we're going to stand by and support you on any of your decisions, but we must also be prudent in handling state dollars. So with that, I'll leave that to basically, that's what I came up here to say. Again, we're here to support and to move forward in the direction that you want to. So.
Joe, one thing I want to add to your comment, talking with the Army Corps, if we chose the Army Corps, as you stated, it could take 30 to 60 days, and then at that 60-day period, they could tell us no, that they don't have the funding. I know there was a letter that was sent out, and basically that's what it stated, everything new that was coming about would have to be approved because of the funding. I don't know if you want to speak to that or not.
Yeah, and that's the letter right here. That's pretty much what I spoke to is because of, in the past, we were able to get 100%. FEMA doesn't normally do that for this period of time, but that period is coming quickly to an end. And we're not as far as long as we thought we would be. So, and also the cost is much greater than we thought it would be. And so we're having to evaluate. It's our goal. The state already covers the non-federal share to communities. We want to make sure that there's, we're prudent on that. And so with that, I can't speak, exactly what the future holds. Again, it's y'all's choice to go which way, but we would have to evaluate it based on the cost and analysis of what it would be.
Flip side of that is, as Chip stated earlier, they can start within a window of maybe 10 to 12 days. So that's the difference. And it hasn't been like, I want the board to know, of us not trying to reach out. We done that earlier on, I think back in October, and tried to get the process rolling earlier. And to be honest with you, I just don't think we were big enough to, they had other sites that was much worse. So that's the feeling I got. And what I will say is SDR has been very responsive and open to answering our questions and meeting with us. And I can't say the same, for the Corps. So.
Yeah, that's true, Brandon. I feel like they ignored Bryant's letter from October 18th whenever he sent a letter to the Army Corps to ask them, and we just never heard back from them. It's almost like they was just left in their emails, from what I could gather from our staff. So, we tried early on to do that, and we weren't successful. So I'm glad SDR was there to kind of, pick up that end of it for us and get that going. So.
We also, not only was the email, but in December, I know through your direction, I believe it was, we went on the portal and filled the portal side out so that, or an application out on the portal to try to engage as well, and still didn't get much response or no response until just just maybe a month or so ago, so.
Right. And then in phone conversations, they don't say much either, so.
No, we had some meetings and, the interest wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
This has been a large disaster this is the largest disaster the state of North Carolina has ever faced. And I can't say if it was the Corps' issues, the state's issues, or whose fault it was for the slowness of the response, and I apologize for that. But at the same time, I do believe that it is in the intent to move as fast as possible, and it's to the benefit of the community to move as fast as possible to pick up the debris. And so, if we can get this debris that is of imminent threat to public infrastructure up, that would be great. And also, we're working with the EWP program, we're in Soil and Water right now, to look at, we're giving them the information of where we're picking up the debris so that they can take that documentation and hopefully move faster. So when they get funding, they're ready to roll. And so that's our goal, to partner with them as well and get these areas back to some semblance of normal that we can.
Joe, I'd like to say thank you for coming. I see Trudy sitting in the back, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that her in the sunshine?
Darla, yeah.
I
she's
mean,
back
Darla.
there.
That's
Yeah.
right. Excuse me, Darla. I didn't mean to
Darla
say
spent
that.
many a day here and still spends many a day here
Yeah.
working on projects, on unmet needs. And she's been a vital asset to us and to the counties in Western North Carolina.
I appreciate your comments, and you speak to me and to the rest of the board when you break it down into a timely fashion, and you're talking about us basically being the keeper of the public's purse. And that is our job, to give oversight, and to try to get these jobs expedited. And I know several people sitting in the room here know these rivers like the back of their hand. I see one guy, I remember when he was a teenager, I seen him after Ivan running up and down the river in a log skidder, jerking some of this stuff out. And but we have people here that do know this area, and that's a big advantage. Sadly, as you said, we do have experience from Tropical Storm Fred. That's nothing that we should be really proud of, but I'm proud of our staff, I'm proud of you, and some of the efforts that have been done as a result of that have really helped us with Helene, as has been stated. So our decision, I guess, boils down to whether to go with SDR or go on the Army Corps engineer routes, which we do have a kind of a sour taste, as has been said, in our mouth about a sour taste from the Army Corps not really responding. I know they've picked their game up here in recent weeks. I guess they've had to. But it all kind of boils down to that. So could you just reiterate to me, as we try to make this decision, your opinion on Army Corps funding and going with this route? I know I'm a guy that likes to get things done in an expedited way. And as far as I'm concerned, some of this stuff should have probably been done a month after the storm or sooner. I've watched some of this infrastructure, some of this debris that we're talking about finally getting removed here in March. It's been sitting under some of our public bridges that cost the taxpayer millions and millions of dollars. And some of these and I know some of you see what I see. I was on a bridge Sunday morning. I don't know how many of you seen how fast the river came up about daylight Sunday morning. I was on a bridge standing there, and there was a locust tree that big around, and I bet it was 50 foot long, came down through there. And when it come down and crossed the river, I run off the bridge, because when it hit the bridging abutment, the whole structure shook. And I guess that's something that you're talking about, protecting infrastructure. But in your opinion, Army Corps, we got that on one side of the scales, and we got SDR going private. Go ahead.
Well,
you speak with a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience.
Yeah,
you went all the way back to Francis
I appreciate that very much, but this is, I have to put it back on this community's, it's y'all's decision, it's not mine. I can tell you what, the steps are, that what will happen if you choose the Corps, you will need to write a letter to us. We will proceed to do that assessment. we will task the Corps to do an assessment. The Corps will then do an assessment. The Corps will then put it out to contract and out to bid, which will take longer. Once the bid is agreed upon and the contract is agreed upon, all the right of entry still have to be done, on and on. And so I will just leave it at that, but it's your decision, okay? We're here. What I heard was that you could have debris removed very soon. Yeah.
The difference in the cost to the taxpayer? Not very much.
No, the Corps is, it's a lot more expensive because of the way it's structured, you know. It's morally designed for emergency protective measures at the very beginning. The longer it goes on, the more expensive it gets. And the bureaucracy of it, costs more to be honest. It's just the way it is. I am not bad-mouthing the Corps whatsoever. They've done a great job in Western North Carolina. I haven't heard any negative comments from almost any of the debris operations. But the timeliness is something that I think has to be considered. And so that's, where I am tonight. Any other questions regarding any of the recovery efforts of Helene or T.S. Fred or anything that I can try to answer? I'll be happy to try to engage those conversations.
I was joking a while ago when I asked if FEMA had their checkbook with them, but I think, have we been made whole, Bryant, from Tropical Storm Fred?
I think for Fred and even COVID, we're caught up. I'm not sure how far we are in Helene, but so far our costs have not put us in any financial jeopardy or anything like that too. So I think from Fred, we're certainly made whole on debris, those kinds of things. So.
And then I think, from what I understand, what I hear from Helene, the reimbursements should happen a little faster than what they did with Tropical Storm Fred.
That's our goal, is to get them out faster, to have it more structured, to have a obligation going through, pushing it through. That's, and we expect that to be the case.
Just to add to that, I'm probably going to toot our own horn a little bit. Not necessarily this board, I guess, but our staff and our finance director. But financially, as a county, we're in a good position. And we were fortunate enough to front the money, with Tropical Storm Fred. And then here we are again with another storm 4 years later. And financially, we're financially sound. And I appreciate our staff and all the work that this board's done and our staff to make our county that way. A lot of the decisions that went into that, it's not an easy thing. And I think, hooray for us, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we don't toot our own horn enough, I don't think. And I want the public to know that we're in a good position so we can do things like this. So.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's something I was thinking is that, anytime we have reimbursement from the state or from the federal government, it's not guaranteed. We have to work to make sure that all of our T's are crossed and I's are dotted to get that money back. And I know as we were finishing up Tropical Storm Fred, we were really just in, if I understand correctly, just a few $100s that we were not reimbursed in comparison to the thousands that we spent to get operations mobilized for all sorts of things. And that really does speak to the staff that we're watching those dollars very carefully. Brian, I would ask you if you have, from the financial side of it, and Brandon touched on this already, but any concerns or direction that you feel like is, I heard more expensive and a longer time period, so it makes sense to me to go one way instead of the other, but your thoughts as from the financial side?
Helene and the way the reimbursements are set up is much different than Fred. And I think thanks to Joe and everybody involved in that. And that was one of the reasons that we were trying to break the stream locations up into packages so we can be working on one, submit billing, and as we're working on the others, we can kind of ladder how the payments go out and payments come in. But they've set up a little bit faster process than that. So I don't really have any concerns with it as it's drawn up. I think as long as we do what we're supposed to do, and you know, and if we were to select SDR and they follow the rules, I don't see any you know, flies in the ointment on that. It seems like it's a good process to where we can certainly roll through it without much liability, really.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, Joe.
All right, thank you.
I did want to make a comment about the bureaucracy and the time it takes. We got to remember that all this money that we're talking about is taxpayer money. And what I've learned in watching FEMA and our state work is they have to make sure that that money is accounted for. And that takes time to do that because their people have to check that and make sure that the money's spent properly. And as a taxpayer, I appreciate that. I don't appreciate the time it takes, but that's why it takes time, is because they're making sure, yeah. And I tell you, through this hurricane and this crisis and disaster, I've seen, it seems like people want to play the con game. I've seen it with people donating things that don't go to where they're supposed to, and I'm sure the government is the same way. They've got to make sure, and they're going to make sure, because it's taxpayer money, that it's spent wisely. And I do appreciate that now that I can step back and look at it. The time frame and the bureaucracy is there because they're watching out for taxpayer money. And I've seen that, and I appreciate it in a way, you know. So.
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
In a lot of
I
ways.
see it. You've always, when you have a pot of money, you've always got somebody out there that's trying to get their hand in it. And they don't always have the best interests of the taxpayer in mind.
That's
and
right.
so that's why we have checks and balances. Sadly, it's because of cheaters, people who con the system, who game the system, and it does take time. It slows the process up. On a side note, I've been in contact with our state legislature today, and I don't know if you guys have heard, but they've got the Helene bill primed and ready to be voted on the House floor tomorrow. Our state legislature sent me a message right when I came, as the meeting started, and he said to tell the folks that it'll be voted on tomorrow and will provide much needed funds for rebuilding houses, private roads and bridges, and provide help for our farmers. So there's lots of good funding there. So if they'll just unlock it, unlock those funds and send them our way, that'd be nice. So.
Okay. And our staff has to make sure that those funds are spent the way they're supposed to be spent, and our staff has had to take a lot of time to make sure that that's proper so we can get reimbursed. So even when we get reimbursed, the state and federal government makes sure that we follow the rules and follow the policies to be able to do that. And it takes time. And unfortunately, that's something that we live in a society where we want things right away. And it's not McDonald's or Burger King when you are in a disaster trying to get things paid for. So, but anyway, I just want to make a comment on that because it seems like we've all got complaints, but they do look out for taxpayer money.
I just want to say this is a real important, Joe touched on it. He said recovery doesn't begin until debris removal is, started. And I drive through our community and I go by the river going home every day. And it really has been sad and discouraging to see the river, and it was up this weekend, with the rain we had. And we all know how when you see that water start to crest, it really it's a little nerve-wracking, and it affects morale and how people want to rebuild and start over. And this is probably, although not glamorous and not you know, I guess it's not, I guess we're going to do some more exciting things later, but this is really an important step in recovery to our community, and it's, we need to get it right, and we need to get it going.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
I've got one more thing I want to ask you right quick. After this storm, remind me if Jennifer said that, after this storm we had this weekend, did it change any of those 22 sites or anything?
I can't really speak to that. I don't know if the assessment has been done to see that. I can tell you that in previous events with the way these streams are right now, it's very possible that some of these sites would need to be reassessed or looked at, but I wouldn't think it would be too much. I think we'd be okay. And I think as soon as we get started, we can make those adjustments.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would think everything from Helene got jammed up and probably not much of it's going to wash. It's probably jammed in there. Okay, so I don't have any discussion or adjustment to the agenda. Does anybody else have anything on that? Okay, hearing none, I will go to the consent agenda, and we have 8 items on the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions on any of those 8 items? And if you don't, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Before you make that motion, could the sheriff explain this consent agenda about this sliding scale for retired officers' sidearm?
This is basically a housekeeping item that formalizes a process that we've already been doing. I'm sure you've seen some of the agenda items for retiring law enforcement get their firearm at a sliding fee scale, or if they've been done 20 years, I believe it is with Haywood County, they get it for free.
Based on years of service.
Yeah, it's basically just kind of a housekeeping to clean up audits and things like that. We, Chief Deputy Trantham and Christian Owen and I kind of got together and looked back over the history of it and realized we didn't have anything formal in writing anywhere, so this just...
Okay, so this is just kind of a housekeeping.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's really no change, just to put it on paper.
No, sir, yep, just a house cleaning item to formalize it.
Good.
So.
That clears it up for me. Thank you.
And on item number 8, when it, for informational purposes in reference to General Statute 159-15, I mean, understand it's general statute, but that's something we've never had before?
That started new this fiscal year. It's required by state statute that we provide those for your information, the line item transfers that I do under the authority of the budget ordinance to keep the freight moving. You know, we may move money from office supplies to travel or correct accounts. So that's something you'll see going forward. Should be monthly.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, anybody? Okay, I'll entertain that motion now.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, next is our regular agenda, which is what we've been talking about earlier, is to request that the board authorize the county manager to either do number 1, which is issue notice to proceed to Southern Disaster Recovery for the implementation of emergency stream debris removal program and private property debris removal, or number 2 is to request state emergency management to engage the Army Corps of Engineers for the same in service and request authorization for county manager to execute all related documents. So go ahead, Brian. I guess that says it.
That's pretty much it, Mr. Chairman. How you decide to vote, either option 1 or 2, will signal to me that I can sign the notice to proceed for SDR, or what Mr. Stanton said, load that letter requesting the Army Corps do the same work that SDR would do, either emergency stream assessments and removal and the PPDR. Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Yep.
I would recommend, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, based off our meetings with Army Corps and SDR and what we've heard here today, and our discussion, I'd like to make the motion that we move forward with SDR.
I second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, not to put Chip on the spot, but how do we, can you give us some confirmation on our local, using our local folks? I mean, that really, it's obvious that we want to be fast and efficient, and we want to keep moving. It makes no sense to me whatsoever to stop and start over with the Army Corps. But it also is very important to us. I think Brandon said it, and I have too, that we, and like I said earlier, they've really proven their salt. And I'm sure your folks are really good, but, you know, I'd just like to see us incorporate some of our local providers.
Yes, I think the board's, you and other board members made it clear. And first order would be to start to put together that workshop. We currently have local contractors, you know, working in the right of way, likely. Those are some of the same ones that have been doing EWP waterway work as well.
Okay.
You will be bidding out the projects to open it up to private contractors, or you'll select the ones based on your.
It's not a bid, though.
We won't bid it, but we will do a workshop with local contractors, bring them in, provide them all the information, the briefing, get their information, and likely in the midst of that, we'll come to agreement on which ones will work, and some won't. Some either won't be able to, you know, stay on the project, or for whatever other reason, may not be able to work.
But you'll make the effort to open it up to them.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Chip, what's your process? I know that in Henderson County, if I remember correctly, you had, Roger, I can't remember what you said, but maybe 80 contractors that showed up. What kind of process do you have to select however many? Say you only needed 20, I don't know the number, but what kind of process will you use to select those? Is it based on the equipment size, the manpower, or I know, do they have to have insurance or be bonded, or just speak to that if you don't mind. We've got several contractors in the room tonight. So.
Right. Bonding, we don't pass bonding requirements on. We are required by the county to carry bonds on the project. Insurance is important, and that we ask that our subcontractors carry that level of insurance. I've used the term, if they've worked for North Carolina DOT, then they have the level of insurance that's needed. We're going to be looking for familiarity with the work, and frankly, if they've got familiarity with us, obviously that's going to be, if we've worked together before and it's been good for them, good for us, good for the county. I mean, that's going to be a pretty good leg up.
I think that you will open it up. That gives me some peace, because if you open it up and they don't want the work, that's different, you know, or they can't meet your requirements. But I see no reason whatsoever to delay it. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, are those all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Did that clear that up? Okay, next item of business is appointments, and the only thing we have there is to request approval of reappointment of Dennis Stanton and Terry Clark to the Smoky Mountain Event Center Board, which is the Haywood County Fairgrounds Board. And I'll somebody make that motion. Anybody got any questions?
Those 3-year seats, I know we had that rotation. We'd worked hard to get that rotation down pat to where we always had experience on that board. Is that board rotation back to where it needs to be?
Mr. Stanton and Terry Clark will fill the remaining terms of Gina Zachary and Josh Justice, respectively. And these are full 3-year terms.
So they're filling in okay, I get it. They're replacing people that's already assigned to a term, a 3-year term.
Okay. Gina Zachary and Josh Justice, yes, sir.
So they're not finishing their term.
No, they finished it. This is a new one for them.
New term, yeah. Is that what you were asking?
I get it.
That's right, I'm sorry, I confused it. They were originally appointed to fill those terms. Now this is their own three-year term.
Their own
I'm sorry.
three-year term. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve those two to sit on Smoky Mountain Event Center Board.
Is there-
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, that concludes our agenda. Does anybody have anything else to bring before the board? You know, I went through, I'm sorry, I went through constituent concerns. I didn't give you all a chance. I don't
Yes.
think. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I was
I'm
going to
sorry.
make mention. I think I had probably one of the busiest 2 weeks in a while, and I know I've absolutely aggravated county staff to death over certain issues around the county, and they've all been resolved. Had several questions surrounding the cleanup and some issues with some contractors, and been with the. I've bothered Garen, I've bothered Judy Hickman. It seems like I've just been bombarded, and the staff has stepped up and resolved these issues for our citizens, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I'll entertain a motion. We adjourn.
Second.
Is there a motion? You make that motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Everybody be safe.